Well, hey, all you wiretappers out there. I'm working really hard on that Sammy the Bull script and research about what happened out in Arizona. I just can't believe that he copped a plea and took that much time on best I can find is one or two, or like a few minutes on a wiretap. There's more to this story. Anyhow, I've been working real hard on that. I just want to throw this out there. It's a clip from my Michael DiLeonardo interview. I don't know, a year or so ago, 2 years ago, year and a half ago. I thought it was really interesting where he talks about his youth, his growing up, how he got his nickname, about the La Cosa Nostra and how it developed, and how some people were part of that and a legacy of that, and what he saw in the neighborhood, kind of his take on that. And I just think it's really interesting view from him. I think it's worth re-showing again or retelling, putting that back out there. Anyhow, I appreciate all you guys. I just got 5,000 subscribers on my YouTube channel, and the audio is going good. So we're just going to keep going. I have a lot of people that say, hey, you should have more subscribers. I probably have just exactly what I'm supposed to have. Success might go to my head. I might get arrogant about this thing, but anyhow, I'm having fun. That's the main thing, is I'm having fun. I had 25 years on the police department. I had fun the whole time, except maybe a few times every now and then, but mainly it was fun. So thanks a lot, guys, and enjoy Michael DiLeonardo, a real deal mob guy.
My family goes back, I'm Sicilian, and my family goes back a couple hundred years being involved in the Mafia or Cosa Nostra, or another time called Fraternzella. They had different terms for what they called each other years ago, and then how it migrated to the States. So my grandfather, which got here in 1895 with his family, when he got to the country, he was already set up. The people he went to see, from people that was from Sicily, that where he was sent over, the people he had to go see in the States. And he was only 15 when he got here, and they went to Lower Manhattan. And that was really like the nucleus of the Mafia. Between there and the Bronx was probably the two main hubs in New York, outside of like Louisiana, which was really the first heavy migrations of Sicilians in the Mafia in the country, which a lot of people really don't know unless you're an aficionado of this stuff. A lot of Sicilians went to Louisiana, New Orleans. So my upbringing in this life was at the knee. Everything I seen and everything I heard, even though my father was not a member, or any of his two brothers were a member, my grandfather kept them outside of getting into that life. My father had a very bad temper, and my uncles, they weren't really made for that type of life. But everybody was a cousin, everybody was an uncle that was close to our family. So when my grandfather came here, and it was really almost like sent here with his father to go see these certain people in New York, it's a culture, it's a way of life, and this is how these Italians stuck together. They even take advantage of their own at times. Legitimate part of the Italian people that came here, like things like Caruso and all these entertainers and shop owners. So they fed and preyed on their own kind also at that time. This was established. This isn't like a gang that just emanated, just sprung up. They had roots. It's just how they attached those roots in the States with politicians, law enforcement, unions, etc. And how they built this empire, which is still today in the States. Not the magnitude it once was, because they don't control the judges and the politicians the way they used to, or the unions for that matter. So when my family got here in the late 1800s, there was almost like welcoming committee. So, and that's how they step into the life. And that's how my grandfather gets started at a very young age, and then he gets to be a very strong figure, which was, before it was called the Gambino family. It was his kumbada, who he baptized his daughter, and this guy baptized my father, was a guy called Salvatore d'Aguila, which was really one of the first bosses of the whole country.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. He put people in just about every family, in the country at one time. They would call them, like, he put a spy in a family. That's what came to say later on by press or organized crime law enforcement. But he had these general assemblies that were in place before, and then after he continued this. When you hear these stories as a young man, and, I didn't hear from my grandfather, of course, but I hear from my father, my uncles, then later on I two older brothers, 9 to 10 years my senior. You hear these stories, and other people in the neighborhood, because my neighborhood was like 80% Sicilian and about 95% Italian. And we didn't have just like a couple of blocks. We had, Brooklyn was one of the biggest cities in the country. This is how you see what's going on around you without saying I'm a product of my environment.
Yeah.
Because that's a lame excuse.
Yeah.
Nobody's a product of the environment. You're born in an environment. You could do, as an independent thinker, you go in the direction you want to be. You want to be a drug addict, where drug addicts hang out, you'll be a drug addict. You don't want to be a drug addict, you don't hang out with drug addicts.
Yeah.
If you want to be in the mob and you emulate or you idolize those figures, and you want to lead that past, then you try to, grow in that life. If you don't want it, you go be a lawyer, go be a cop.
Yeah.
So like I said, what I seen and what my perspective of what I seen a total amount of people respect how they handle themselves, how they handle their families. I gravitated to that.
Interesting. As a teenager, then, young man, we all kind of want to, we have these expressing ourselves and starting to move into something. I would assume that you probably started getting into some kind of crime as a teenager in order to be noticed by somebody, or they would start noticing that, because, you don't, into a crime family or any kind of organization like that, they're not just going to take anybody in. You're going to have to, all of a sudden, rumors will start, hey, you hear this Mikey kid, hey, he's pretty tough, he can handle himself.
Well, you got a real valid point. Like, when I was a kid, my grandfather bought 2 houses when he started making some money when he first got over here and got married. He went to Manhattan, then he moved to Brooklyn where he bought these houses. It was a double yard, and my grandfather was old school Italian, and he had his grapes, he had his figs, he had his cherry trees, he had his peach trees, he had all his fruits and vegetables. He would tend to his garden every day and then go to the club, or continue on his business. I would get fig season would come along.
Yeah.
And they would call me Michael Lee. He spoke very, very broken English and very limited English. He said, Michael, go bring the figs to Paulie. Go bring the figs to Jerry at the club. These 2 guys that he was talking about were much older than I. Their fathers were murdered in the mob. Mm-hmm. And they were very close to my grandfather, like I was saying earlier with this one guy, D'Aguila, was my father's godfather. And he was murdered October 10th, 1928. And this guy was the guy who ran the country at one time.
Yeah. So
that was my father's godfather. And my father got to know this guy because he was killed around when my father was 16 years old. My father was born 1912. Huh. So, these were my cousins, even though there was no blood.
Yeah.
These were my cousins because my grandfather looked after their kids after their fathers were murdered, and their daughters, and the whole family. Like D'Aguila's, if my grandfather bought a piano for my father or somebody in the house, their family got a piano after he was dead. So we remained extremely close. Like I said, I grew up calling him cousin, not uncle.
Right.
Cousin. So as a young boy now, at 8, 9, 10 years old, go up the block and bring the figs. I would go in there and I'd be hanging out with all these older men.
Yeah.
They give me a quarter, 50 cents. Who gives you $1? And as you get older, you get that $5. You're hanging around the club. If you get older, you get $20. You're hanging around the club. So everybody knows you.
Yeah.
In that circle. And it's not just one family. Of the 5 families, a lot of people get to know you. Hey, that's what's Tony's son. That's Mr. Jimmy's grandson.
Yeah.
And that's Paulie's cousin. Yeah. So everybody, that travels around the circle get to know you. Now I had really 3 sets of friends. I had the guys I grew up playing ball with because I was considered myself an athlete. I like to play baseball, softball, football, etc. I had those set of friends. Then I had my gang friends. Was in itself separate than the sport guys. And my gang friends is where I built my rep up as a street guy, as a street kid. And then I had the older guys, which I used to continue. Like I said, since a little boy, would go to the club and see my cousins, Jerry and Paulie, and all the rest of the people in the neighborhood. And I would, it wasn't just that you walk in, who's this kid? It was like, what do you want to eat, Michael? What do you want? You want something? Go in the back, go in the refrigerator. You want to play cards later on? You want to play cards? We'll teach you how to play pinochle. So it's something like a huge club.
Yeah.
That you understand what they're about. For me to get into that circle was extremely easy, like I said, through lineage. So to emulate guys that you know and you look up, as a little boy, that they're coming to patting you on the head, giving you money and giving some nice accolades and stuff. And it's like, it's natural. It's a natural progression. It's hard to explain to somebody that don't understand that comes off the street and says, how do you get in the mob?
Yeah.
Like you said earlier, it don't happen that easy.
Right. You got to prove yourself in some manner.
Yeah. And there's guys like, I'll give you a name, Sammy Gravano.
Yeah.
His father really had no connections outside of a little connection he had with somebody he knew that protected his dress shop. But Sammy wasn't growing up at the knee of that kind of mobster. Sammy was a street fighter. Sammy grew up in the street fighting.
Yeah.
And he built his way through the street. He blasted his way in like John Gotti and a lot of other guys. I say when a guy comes up on his own without any family history to push him, you blast your way in, especially if you're prone to violence, which these guys were.
Interesting.
So, there's different ways to get in.
I guess before we move away from your earlier years, you got the nickname Mikey Scars. Now, I've had discussions with other people about nicknames, and sometimes the press give them, sometimes the cops do, and the press picks up on it. And sometimes they've been given a nickname by their peers, their brothers or their family or their pals because of something. Now, how'd you get the nickname Mikey Scars?
I come from an Italian neighborhood. There's a lot of Michaels, a lot of Tonys, a lot of Denny's.
Yeah.
So there's always a thing distinguishing of the person because, again, it was a really big neighborhood. It was, a million people there. So I was bitten by a dog at a young age, 8 or 10 years old, something like that. And I ripped off my cheek, my face. And I had a scar. I had a really bad scar for sewn it back. You're talking the 60s. And I got very lucky. I wasn't really deformed. I thought there was a plastic surgeon there. So anyway, I had this scar on my face, and you're embarrassed as a kid.
Yeah.
So now you play ball. Who's that? Who did what? Michael. Who played Michael's team? Which Michael? Michael with the scar on his face.
Yeah.
Who's that guy from Bath Avenue? Those kids are Mikey Scars' friends.
Yeah.
The guy with the scars, now becomes Mikey Scars. And that's how the name. Did I like the name? No, I never referred to myself ever as that.
Yeah,
never.
yeah.
If I'm Michael, I didn't know Mike, no Mikey.
Yeah.
It was Michael. How others refer to you is different. But for myself, I always said, and if I didn't know a person, say we have Michael from where? Tell Michael from there.
Yeah.
And the message was every time somebody knew me when I was in the street or something, I see Mike. I know that person that know me.
Yeah, I see. Yeah.
The people that knew me call me Michael.
Interesting. I tell you what, you got that native intelligence, man, that discerns among people who they are and what they're about. I can see that right now. You were lucky in a way you had a really tough nickname when you were a kid. You could have been known Fat Mikey or something, Right. You should be happy for that. I always wanted a tough nickname when I was a kid. They called me Gary or Jinx.
You know what? The government, they always play nicknames up because it sounds sinister, black. Sounds. But Yankee Clipper. What was the Yankee Clipper? DiMaggio.
Yeah, DiMaggio.
DiMaggio. Come on. The Clipper. The government plays those names up.
Yes, they do.
Monikers.
And the press loves it. I mean, they love it.
Oh, yeah.
Well, guys, that was interesting, wasn't it? I really enjoyed talking to Michael. He was a lot of fun to talk to. I tried to get him back on the show. And as many of you know now, if you're on YouTube, he has his own show with that some dude, I can't remember what they call that show, the Black Hand Mafia dude. Anyhow, we're tracking right along, and I appreciate all the support that you've shown the podcast and your comments. I like your comments and like and subscribe and share this channel. I got that all mixed up, didn't I? Like on Facebook, and if I post that, subscribe on my YouTube channel, subscribe on my audio channel, and share if you can. Tell your friends about it. I'm working like heck all the time to have some good solid mob information out there. Thanks a lot, guys.